Hey guys, it's Graham. What's cracking? This is my review of The Garden of Mars by John Gimlet. I just finished the audiobook today. Don't know the name of the narrator. He's got a really good, I don't know, upper class British accent. Gimlet lived in Madagascar and has lived in Madagascar for a long time. And he's obviously got a great deal of interest and fascination in the topography and the history of the country. And so this is a book that kind of explains all of that. It came out on January 7th, 2021. I didn't hear about it because the news was largely occupied with other things on that date. Some people did some things. But anyway, uh, my interest in wanting to read about Madagascar is, well, I'm going to save that one, put it in my pocket for a later video. But overall, like, I thought this was a pretty well done book. Who's that guy, James Michener, who does kind of the long history books about different regions of the world? His books are like 30, 40 hours in audio. This one was about 13. It was good and concise, and it gave you an idea of the scale of the place and the number of different cultures that have asserted their influence on the country to get it to where it is today. Um, it's it's like maybe 15% of all roads in the country are paved. It rains a whole lot. It always washes away whatever dirt paths there are. It's had different industries over the years. It was a big powerhouse in vanilla plantations for a long time. Now they're kind of modernizing for the 21st century. They do a lot of data processing and stuff. The British had a lot of influence, the Dutch, the French, basically all of those cultures that sailed to different places for a long time in the 16 and 1700s. The language is like a real hodgepodge of other languages. I think one of the most fascinating parts was when he broke down the time period when there were a bunch of Welsh missionaries that came. And like Welsh is a really hard language if you've never seen it written out. It's one of those can I buy a vowel, can you say this word with fewer than 23 letters type languages. But they were able to make a concise version of it that certain tribes in certain areas were able to learn. During World War II, the country experienced various upheavals. They had a couple of republics in the latter half of the 20th century, and then they kind of speed ran that cycle where they collapsed and the Soviets came in, and then the Soviets gave way to the North Korean communists having an influence in there, and then they had some despots, some dictators, some guys who robbed the public treasury and ended up having to flee the country, and it was just one thing after another. It's the kind of stuff that you see play out over like 100 years in the Soviet Union. It took maybe half that time in Madagascar. But they've gotten mostly stable now. But if you look at their language and you look at the names of the people there, you can see like, oh, this family kind of got established during the Dutch period, and most recently you'll see a lot of French influence there. Uh, they were able to advance and scale up during the French colonial period, but there were drawbacks to that. And then when the French left, okay, Madagascar's autonomous. They've got their own rule, except like the Russians moved in and started influencing everything. It's like the Philippines, but instead of being 2,000 something little islands, it's condensed into the eighth continent, we'll say. But yeah, like for being a book that kind of goes back as far as it can with anthropology and then gets into more recent colonial era history, and then dances around with some of John Gimlet's own travels and his experience in the country. It was pretty readable. It was pretty linear. It was easy to follow. It was cool to get these little asides where he talked about, like, I went to this place, I saw this thing, this is what it looks like firsthand, and so on and so forth. He also talks about some of the ongoing problems with poverty in a place like that, and how people will, I mean, if they live on less than $2 a day, they'll do whatever they got to do to survive. Oftentimes stealing things, robbing people, selling whatever they can. And unfortunately, that will then mean the human trafficking trade and the child sex trade. And he gets into that in like the last quarter of the book. Obviously, he's like, this isn't something that I could go explore myself, but I've got an associate who does a lot of studying on it and is trying to figure out like how to kind of break the cycle there. A lot of it just comes from cultural stigmas and attitudes that people have, and how a lot of Western taboos and maybe cultural or religious taboos on sex and on monogamy just flat out don't exist there, and that kind of contributes to the problem. But that's not the same thing as basically like children largely experiencing sex for the first time through prostitution. It's sad, and it's one of those eye-opener things. Like you maybe are vaguely aware of it in the back of your mind that, oh, there are parts of this world, of the world where this happens, but having it fixed to a time and a place and knowing specifics makes it a lot more real. But overall, like I'm glad that I read it. It was easily readable. There's a couple of f-bombs in it. That's the way that it goes with nonfiction. Hey, if we got a quote, here it is. But other than that, like, well, when he talks about some of the civil wars and the beliefs that people have about digging up bodies to steal organs because it can do magic for you, or how a queen of Madagascar would rise up and say, okay, we need to get rid of all the Christians. That's why we had rain last week, and we got to brutally kill the Christians. So there are like depictions of brutality, not in a way to revel in it, but to just kind of characterize it accurately. That's all in there. Just telling it the way that it happened, I guess we'll say. But fascinating book. I give it 4 stars. Link in the description is my affiliate link. Short video today, but I'm going to use this one to make a different video later on. You guys will see what that is. Drive safe. See you out there.